everyone, how are you doing in this turbulent period? Today I'm going to share with you a moral story. It's called The Last Runner. The Last Runner is written by Lisa Beach. Well, this author has a very interesting last name, Beach. The one that you go on to the beach to go swimming. So, The Last Runner, let's start. The annual marathon in my town usually occurs during a heat wave. My job was to follow behind the runners in an ambulance in case any of them needed medical attention. The driver and I were in an air-conditioned ambulance behind approximately 100 athletes waiting to hear the sharp crack of a starting gun. So basically, there was a guy who waits at the starting line and then shoot the gun so that every athlete goes on running. And then the main character's job is to follow behind the runners in an ambulance so that if anyone needs medical attention, if anyone feels, they are out of breath or they feel sick, then the main character needs to help him. Let's go on with the story. We're supposed to stay behind the last runner, so take it slowly, I said to the driver, Doug, as we began to creep forward. Let's just hope the last runner is fast, he laughed. As they began to pace themselves, the front runners started to disappear. It was then that my eyes were drawn to a woman in blue silk running shorts and a baggy white t-shirt. Doug, look! We knew we were already watching our last runner. Her feet were turned in. So the feet were turned in. The legs, normally when you run, it's like this, right? Her feet are turned in like this because she's too tired. Yet her left knee was turned out. So her legs are she feels very tired. Her legs are turned in and turned out. Her legs were so crippled and bent that it seemed impossible for her to be able to walk, let alone run a marathon. Doug and I watched in silence as she slowly moved forward. We didn't say a thing. We would move forward a little bit, then stop and wait for her to gain some distance. Then we'd slowly move forward a little bit more. As I watched her struggle to put one foot in front of the other, I found myself breathing for her and urging her forward. I wanted her to stop, and at the same time, I wanted and I prayed that she wouldn't stop. Finally, she was the only runner left in sight. Tears streamed down my face as I sat on the edge of my seat and watched with awe, amazement, and even reverence as she pushed forward with sheer determination through the last miles. When the finish line came into sight, trash lay everywhere and the cheering crowds had long gone home. Yet standing straight and ever so proud waited a lone man. He was holding one end of a ribbon of crepe paper tied to a post. She slowly crossed through. The old woman, leaving both ends of the paper fluttering behind her. I do not know this woman's name, but that day she became a big part of my life, a part I often depend on. For her, it wasn't about beating the other runners or winning a trophy. It was about finishing what she had set out to do, no matter what. When I think things are too difficult or too time-consuming, or I get those I can't do it, I think of the last runner. Then I realize how easy the task before me really is. So this is the end of the story. What have you learned, or what can you think you can learn from the story? Now, first, we are always in our school, maybe, or when we join a competition, we always focused on being the number one, right? We want to win the trophy, we want to be the winner. But how about those who are less good than, or less, what about those who are disadvantaged? Do we just care about ourselves, or should we also care about others who are weaker than you? This touches on one very important thing, that is, we should have some sympathy for others, or rather, we should have some empathy. Now, what is the difference between sympathy and empathy? Empathy is something that requires us to put ourselves into others' shoes. That means we think in others' views. We treat ourselves, we imagine ourselves as the other person to feel how he or she feels. And this circles back to ourselves. By thinking in others' views and putting ourselves into others' shoes can help us to overcome our own obstacles. Instead of laughing at others' failures, we've learned to help them and use their failure or their hardships to empower ourselves, so that when we experience some difficulties in our own lives, we can think of them and to let it be our driving force. One day, these experiences or these stories will actually help ourselves in various amazing ways. So this is the end, and maybe we'll see each other in the next video. Bye bye.